Well, CPAC has made its way to Europe for the very first time. The conservative conference is underway in Hungary, partnering with a government that many people feel is backsliding on democracy. The country's president, Viktor Orban, is included as a featured speaker. In his speech, he pushed for a conservative takeover.
Vissza kell vennünk az intézményeket Washingtonban és Brüsszelben. Barátokra kell lennünk, és szövetséges kell találnunk egymásban, koordinálnunk kell csapataink mozgását, mert nagy megmérettetés előtt állunk. 2024.
So CBS News correspondent Adam Yamaguchi is in Hungary on a reporting trip. He's also one of the few Western journalists who's gained access to the conference. Adam, thanks for joining us. I had to tell you, I didn't realize that CPAC happened outside of this country. I had to sort of Google to learn that it actually does on occasion. Can you describe what the scene's like for us there and who's in attendance?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a really interesting scene as I walk through the halls of the conference. I hear mostly Hungarian being spoken, and every now and again I hear that distinct American accented English. I probably run into a few dozen Americans myself who've come out here specifically for this. There are also a number of people from elsewhere in Europe, and surprisingly from South Korea and Japan as well. And in talking to these attendants, I feel like I could be at any conservative gathering in the US because the talk is all about gender, CRT, cancel culture, being censored on tech platforms, and of course the elite liberal media.
That is so surprising to me. Also surprising is that Hungary was chosen. Do we know why the event is taking place there?
Yeah, many American conservatives see Orban's Hungary as this sort of anti-woke paradise. They see Viktor Orban as being a bit of a hero, someone who is willing to stand up to what they see as the progressive excesses of the West. And they see someone who has made God, homeland, and family a cornerstone of his government. And those three words, God, homeland, and family, are actually the theme of this conference. The Americans here want to emulate him, and so they're here to learn how.
We played a clip earlier, a part of the Prime Minister's speech. What were his sort of key points, and what was the reaction like?
Yeah, so he called the U.S. and Hungary the two fronts of the battle for Western civilization. He spent quite a bit of time railing against what he called the LGBTQ agenda that's being pushed by the radical left. Railed against sexualized instruction in the classroom. And he emphasized the need to promote families, which he was very clear to define strictly as that of the domain of a man and a woman. But I would say that the biggest applause line came when he talked about the Syrian migrant crisis of 2015. This is when millions of Syrians fled the country. Many tried to gain entry into Hungary as the sort of southern border of Europe. Orban took a very hard line, built a wall, and when he recounted that story, the crowd just ate it up.
It's just so interesting because so many of these issues I just sort of considered kind of cultural talking points that were very American. And to hear that they translate across the globe is surprising to me. I suppose this other point is not. He specifically mentioned the media and the need to have control over it. I want to play some of his sound.
Kedves barátaim, legyen média. A progresszív baloldal őrültségeit csak akkor tudjuk bemutatni, ha van média, ami segített.
I don't know if you were sort of pulling your collar a little bit. You are sort of one of the only Western non-state media connected journalists at the event. How are you feeling and how have you been treated?
I definitely have felt the heat throughout this conference. I got to say, I have become accustomed to this, the suspicion towards the mainstream press in the last few years. I will say, though, that people are generally a little guarded and maybe a little suspicious, but they're willing to talk. Where it gets a little contentious is, most people I speak to will outright reject the premise of some of my questions, particularly when I ask, what Americans are doing or what an American organization is doing here in a country that's run by what many call a strongman on the edges of an illiberal democracy or even an autocracy. that kind of shuts down the conversations. People soundly reject that, and it can get a little uncomfortable. One thing that I do want to point out, though, at one point, our credentials were also denied by the local organizers, and it wasn't until we reached out to the CPAC American folks that they managed to get us in. It was a reminder to me that in spite of the very polarized time that we live in spite of the fact that we in the mainstream press are oftentimes villainized, there's still an American recognition of an independent press, and that doesn't exist everywhere, including here.
Before I let you go, we know that Orban is one of the few leaders that continues to speak with Putin. They have a good relationship, I guess. What is being said about Ukraine and Putin there?
So not a whole lot is being said, but I should point out in his speech yesterday, Orban did say that Russia was an aggressor, Ukraine is the victim, and that we condemn the aggressor and we help the victim, but that this is just not Hungary's war to fight.
All right, Adam, thank you.